Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Saturday reading club. We have a couple minutes. We've got eight folks joining us this morning. Don't forget to send out those last minute texts and reminders for those people who you know would benefit and learn from our book. Our book today is The Cash Flow Quadrants by Robert Kiyosaki. And give me 1 minute and we will get started. I'm just changing my profile name as it's not set by default. There we go. And there we go. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I'll also bring up uh, the book on the screen. And I'm just going to make it a little bigger, more readily easy to read. Well, while we're waiting for a couple of extra folks to join us, just to give them a chance, let me go ahead and do this. Where's my Zoom controls? Here we go. I'm gonna do my share. And by giving me a response in the chat, we cannot unmute or turn on video for info. That's Ron is requesting co-host status. We can do that. But give me a response in the chat. Type in a one if you're able to see the screen now that you're seeing the book. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Fernando. Good morning. Good morning. From Florida right here to New Jersey, where Lisa is, to California, where Fernando is, early in the morning. Good morning, Fernando. Hope you have your cup of coffee standing nearby.
I'm right here. Great morning. Happy Saturday, everyone. And I got my notepad here ready to learn and read with you all. Thank you so much, Eric, for this morning. Appreciate it.
My
Happy Saturday,
pleasure.
everyone.
So what I want to do, we're on chapter 6, and for those of you with the physical book, that's page 119 is where we're going to start. If you're looking at the PDF and you want the shortcut, it's page 148 out of 322 will get you right here. And while you're flipping through to get to the page, I want to go back just a quick minute. Um, let's see if I went too fast. Last chapter, and that was an excellent reading, was talking about the 5 levels of investors. Okay. And level one, who remembers what level one was? Anybody? Level one is the zero financial intelligence level. And sadly, in America, once the richest country in the world, over 50% of the US population is at the bottom level of the I quadrant. Simply said, they have nothing to invest. Now, before I go on, and I'm just going to hit the 5 levels really quick, but look at what you just heard. And I was talking to somebody about this that they didn't pick up the first time. Bottom level of I quadrant. That means that, there's the 4 quadrants, right? There's the E, the S on the left side, no leverage, the B, business and investor on the right side, leverage. But they just told you that the I quadrant, which is the quadrant that we all want to be in significantly. You don't have to be there exclusively, but you want to be there significantly. They just told you that there's 5 levels. You could break that one quadrant into 5 levels. So that's one of the things that I wanted to pull out of there. Then level two are savers. And then he goes on to say the savers are losers. And not that they're losers as a person, but they're losing out mathematically. And like I said, the problem is that today money is no longer money. We're going to talk about that in chapter 6. But today, people are saving counterfeit dollars, money that can be created at the speed of light. And that which can be created from nothing with nothing uh, is often worth nothing. And then he goes on to talk about when the US dollar, which used to be gold backed by gold, in other words, for every dollar in circulation, there was a dollar of gold, sitting in Fort Knox. And today it no longer, because that limited how many dollars you could print. And so now with something that was that was introduced earlier but became very apparent, was inflation. And that's why he's talking about that savers are losers, is not that the having the discipline to save is good, but saving is not enough. You must invest in order to retire financially independent. Level 3 is the too busy. In other words, the delegators, right? This is the investors too busy to learn about investing. And even if you don't manage your money, you need to be familiar with the game of money, the terms of money, the concepts of money. And it's just the concepts, not the specific, not the latest laws and rules. And because people are so busy, or they don't put the right priority, they turn their money over to someone else to manage it. And I'll tell you, I have had many money managers in the past, and just because they have a title on their business card doesn't mean that they're necessarily good at it. So, and nobody manages your money as carefully as you do. So that was level 3. Level 4 is I'm a professional. Okay. And this is the do it yourself. All right. This is, as we say, go out there, learn, um, and become good at it. The problem with a lot of it is that people don't spend enough time, or they don't align themselves with the right people. So, like he said, in most cases, the do-it-yourselfer has very little, if any, formal education. But after all, if they do it themselves, why should they learn anything? And what he's basically hinting at is a little bit of the clarity that you have on there. Anyway, and then level 5 is the capitalist level. And the capitalist level, we notice in that level, is a whole different mindset. The level 5 investor capitalist is a business owner from the B quadrant investing in the I quadrant. You know, I do a podcast every Friday called The 5-Year Career. And it's part of a coaching program that we have, basically telling you that if you're an investor or a real estate professional, you could do your entire career and be financially independent within 5 years. In fact, most entrepreneurs could do that if they did it on purpose. But what they're talking about here is the differences between a level 4 and a level 5 investor, right? The S quadrant generally uses his or her own money. On Wednesday nights, we talk about not using your money to leverage and speed up the process. The B quadrant investor generally uses OPM, in other words, business owner. And that's why my 3 basic beliefs, if you've been a listener to my radio show or attended the Wednesday night, those 3 fundamental beliefs, everything has to go through those filters. Number 1, you should own a house. Number 2, you should have a financial plan, a written financial plan. That's part of being financially literate. That's part of being at least a level 4 investor. Okay. So for those of you who are thinking, what level am I at? Right. I hope you're not at the 0. And I doubt that you are if you are here. Most people are at the level 2 and think they're at the level 4. Uh, the level 2 is the saver and probably not very involved in the actual investments. Then when we see the level 5, the difference is the one major difference between the level 4, right? That one uses their own money only, and the other uses other people's money. And by people could be banks, institutions, lenders, investors, etc. But they take other people's money and then make a profit for them and with them, right? You borrow money from a bank, you're making the bank a profit. But if they're charging 5%, you're making 10%, let them make a profit. In fact, all the better. They're the ones that are allowing you to make that extra 5% profit. So the S quadrant investor is also often a solo investor. And but the good thing is usually I call them the employee at a higher level. The B quadrant is really where you want to be, but the S quadrant is, probably at the level 4, the do it yourself. Anyway, that's what I wanted to do. Just a quick recap because that's important, and that little nuance that if you were to have a drawing of the cash flow quadrants, you would now go back in there and divide quadrant I into 5 levels. And then, like I said, you would want to make sure that you get to level 5. All right, so here we go. Let's start chapter 6. We cannot see money with your eyes. Um, by the way, for those of you, who are there, you can watch along and read. I know that Jameson had put the link in uh, the Telegram chat. And if you're not on Telegram, put that in the chat so that we can invite you into the Telegram that keeps you updated throughout the weeks of all of our activities on the financial side. Money is an idea that is more clearly seen with your mind. In late 1974, I purchased a small condominium on the fringes of Waikiki as one of my first investment properties. The price was $56,000 for a cute 1-bedroom, 1-bath unit in an average building. It was a perfect rental unit, and I knew it would rent quickly. I drove to my rich dad's office, all excited about showing him the deal. He glanced at the documents, and in less than a minute, he looked up and asked, "How much money are you losing a month?" "About $100 a month," I said. "Don't be foolish," Rich Dad said. "I haven't gone over the numbers, but I can already tell from the written documents that you're losing much more than that. And besides, why in the world would you knowingly invest in something that loses money?" "Well, the unit looked nice and I thought it was a good deal. A little paint and the place would be as good as new," I said. "That doesn't justify knowingly losing money," smirked Rich Dad. "Well, my real estate agent said not to worry about losing money every month. He said that in a few years, the price of this unit will be double. In addition, the government gives me a tax break on the money that I lose. Besides, it was such a good deal that I was afraid someone else would buy it if I didn't." This is like classic beginning investor. Rich Dad, Rich Dad stood and closed his office door. When he did that, I knew I was about to be chewed out as well as be taught an important lesson. I'd been through these types of educational sessions before. "So how much money are you losing a month?" Rich Dad asked again. "About $100, I repeated nervously. Rich Dad shook his head as he scanned the documents. The lesson was about to begin. On that day, I learned more about money and investing than I had in all my previous 27 years of life. Rich Dad was happy that I took the initiative and invested in a property, but I'd made some grave mistakes that could have been a financial disaster. However, the lessons I learned from that one investment have made me millions over the years. Money is seen with your mind." Remember that quote. "It is not what your eyes see," said Rich Dad. "A piece of real estate is a piece of real estate. A company stock certificate is a company stock certificate. You can see those things, but it's not what you see that's important. It's the deal, the financial agreement, the market, the management, the risk factors, the cash flow, the corporate structuring, the tax laws, and 1,000 other things that make something a good investment or not. Then he proceeded to tear the deal apart with questions. Why would you pay such a high interest rate? Why do you figure your return on what do you figure your return on investment to be? How does this investment fit in your long-term financial strategy? What vacancy factor are you using? What is your cap rate? Have you checked your association's history of assessments? Have you figured in management costs? What percentage rate did you use to compute repairs? Did you know that the city just announced that it will be tearing up the roads in that area and changing the traffic pattern? A major thoroughfare will turn right in, will run right in front of your building. Residents are moving to avoid the year-long project. Did you know that? I know the market trend is up today, but do you know what is driving that trend? Is it business economics or is it greed? How do you think the trend will continue up? This, by the way, is just absolute gold when you think about this. And that one question, when you're in an up market, and that's when you know when to hold back or when to dive in. Do you know what is driving the trend, right? And right now, for example, in our marketplace, it's supply and demand. Is it business economics, i.e., supply and demand, or is it greed, like we saw in 2005 and 2006, leading up to the economic bubble? Everybody was investing and they didn't care what it was because whatever they put their money in, everything was going up, and everybody believed that it would do that way forever. And we all know that it doesn't. So, how long do you think the trend will continue up? What happens if the place doesn't rent? And what if it does? And if it doesn't, how long can you keep this place and yourself afloat? And again, what goes on in your head to make you think that losing money is a good deal? And this really worried me. It looked like a good deal, I said, deflated. Rich Dad smiled, stood up, and shook my hand. I'm glad you took action. He said, most people think, but never do. If you do something, you make mistakes. And it's from our mistakes that we learn the most. And I agree. Remember that anything important can't really be learned in the classroom. It must be learned by taking action, making mistakes, and then correcting them. That's when wisdom sets in. I felt a little better and I was ready to learn. Rich Dad went on to explain that people look at a piece of real estate or the name of a stock and often make their decision based on what their eyes see, what a broker tells them, or on a hot tip from a fellow worker. They often buy emotionally instead of rationally. And P.S., probably one of the biggest lessons is to understand that people buy on emotion and then justify with logic, right? That's why 9 out of 10 investors don't make money. 9 out of 10, said Rich Dad. While they might not lose money, they don't make any either. They're just sort of break even, making some and losing some. That's because they invest with their eyes and emotion rather than with their minds. Many people invest because they want to get rich quickly. So instead of becoming investors, they wind up being dreamers, hustlers, gamblers, and crooks. The world is filled with them. So let's sit down, go back over this losing deal you just bought, and I'll teach you how to turn it into a winning deal. I'll begin to teach your mind to see what your eyes can't. Next section, from bad to good. The next morning, I went back to the real estate agent, rejected the deal as it stood, and reopened negotiation. Another lesson there, right? A deal isn't always the last deal. It is always open to some renegotiation. It wasn't a pleasant process, but I learned a lot. This is getting out of your comfort zone, by the way. 3 days later, I returned to see Rich Dad. The price of the condo stayed the same, and the agent got his full commission because he deserved it. But while the price remained the same, the terms of the investment were vastly different. By renegotiating the interest rate, payment terms, and amortization period, instead of losing money, I was now certain of making a net profit of $80 per month, even after the management fee and an allowance for vacancy was factored in. I could even lower my rent and still make money if the market went bad. I could definitely raise the rent if the market got better. I estimated that you were going to lose at least $150 a month, said Rich Dad. Probably more if you had continued to lose $150 per month based on your salaries and expenses. How many of these deals can you afford? Barely one, I replied. Most months, I don't have an extra $150. If I had done the original deal, I would have struggled financially every month, even after the tax breaks. I might even have had to take an extra job to pay for this investment. And in parentheses, I'll add, and subsidize the tenant's life instead of mine. Think about that. Subsidizing the life of a stranger at the expense of your own family. And now, how many of these deals at $80 positive cash flow can you afford? Asked Rich Dad. I smiled and I said, as many as I can get my hands on. So Rich Dad nodded in approval. Now, go out there and get your hands on more of them. A few years later, the real estate prices in Hawaii did skyrocket. But instead of having only one property go up in value, I had seven double in value. That is the power of a little financial intelligence. How about that? Instead of having one property go up in value, this is where leverage comes in. I had seven double in value, seven that were cash flowing positive, seven that doubled in value. And this is the power of a little financial intelligence. Next section, you can't do that. When I took my offer back to the real estate agent, all he said to me was, you can't do that. What took the longest time was convincing the agent to start thinking about how we could do what I wanted done. In any event, there were many reasons, many lessons I learned from this one investment. And one of those lessons was to realize that when someone says to you, you can't do that, they may have one finger pointing at you, but three fingers are pointing back towards them. Rich Dad taught me that you can't do that doesn't necessarily mean you can't. It more often means they can't. A, and when someone tells you that you can't do that, that's the smell of money. That's the smell of opportunity. A classic example took place many years ago when people told the Wright brothers, you can't do that. Thank goodness the Wright brothers didn't listen. $1.4 trillion looking for a home. Every day, trillions of dollars are moved around the planet electronically. There is more money being created and available today than ever before. The problem is that money is invisible. Pay attention here. Today, the bulk of it is electronic. So when people look for money with their eyes, they fail to see anything. Most people struggle to live paycheck to paycheck, and yet $1.4 trillion flies around the world every day looking for someone who wants it. It's looking for someone who knows how to care and take care of it, nurture it, and grow it. If you know how to take care of money, money will flock to you and be drawn and thrown at you. People will beg you to take it, right? If you know how to make money and make money for others, money comes to you. But if you don't know how to care for money, money will stay away from you. Remember Rich Dad's definition of financial intelligence. It's not how much money you make, but how much money you keep, how hard it works for you, and how many generations you keep it for. Mic drop right there. Anyway, really quick question. Anyone have any comments or ahas in that first part of the reading? We started at about 10 pages ago, and I was just wondering if anyone has any input. Feel free to raise your hands.
I do. It's Ron.
Hey, Ron.
Yeah, the statement of people buy on emotion and they justify with logic.
How
The
many
if
times have you seen that?
Oh my God, yes. The concept there for me, the little twist was that since people buy on emotion, then we should market to the emotions and
Bingo,
close on the logic.
bingo. 100% right, Ron.
Hmm.
That's an aha that a lot of people in sales never get.
Yes. And one more thing that was kind of really good, aside from that last paragraph, was outstanding. But when they say you can't do it, you smell money, and that's so true because you see or you know what they don't see and certainly don't know,
That's right.
and you
A
can
hundred
capitalize.
percent. Yeah, that's a great point to highlight. Thank you, Ron.
Welcome. Thank you for reading it.
Jameson, our illustrious reader from last week. Good morning. You
I
gotta
think
unmute yourself.
I
Unmute
think
your.
you
There you
can.
go.
Okay.
Jameson, if you're speaking, we don't hear you yet.
I don't
You're
think he has
unmuted.
co-host status.
Uh, let's see, Jameson. I don't have he is co-host status. So
Okay.
Jameson, either there's a mic failure, a
Yes, he is.
Bluetooth failure, or the trolls on the internet have sabotaged your connection. Jameson. Want to give it another try? Meanwhile, while
He's re
Jameson is figuring, I see his mic is open.
he's re-logging in. I guess it's probably
Yeah.
from another device, Eric.
Okay. We'll give him a quick second before we go ahead. In fact, I'm going to just 152. I just want to measure my pace.
He can unmute now. He's got two devices. I don't know which one he's going to talk from.
All right, what I'm seeing is a long chapter. I was going to do this before, but oh, and I'm excited for part two. Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
With an echo, so mute one of your devices.
I'm killing it. Well, log out. There we go. What? Nope.
Try it again.
Kill one. There we go. Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, two things. When I believe this is the one where Rich Dad shut the door and Robert knew that he was in for a lesson, but
Yes.
but Rich Dad said, "Congratulations on taking action," because as in the beginning of the book, he couldn't teach him until he took action. Until he took a swing at the bat, he couldn't tell him what was wrong and how to fix it. And that was really important that Robert took action, and then he learned the most from fixing the problem. He probably had a master class in real estate investing from just Rich Dad bringing it in. And then the second thing was um, the fact, like you were talking about, it's hard to see money because money is an idea, and it in essence, I was looking at it all over the place, like what is money, and it's went from shells to coins to paper, and now it's electronic wires that just float around, like you said, billions and trillions of dollars just moving around. So that was just my little insight. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah. And one of the things, we just finished reading a book, about leadership and leaders. And you have to appreciate number one, having a mentor is so critically important. If you don't have a mentor, or in many cases, many mentors, it's like an athlete not having a coach. But the thing that I saw that I really appreciated was when Rich Dad closed the door. In other words, this was not about embarrassing him, right? He took him into a privacy, giving him one-on-one attention, and then giving the knowledge and the lesson. So even though he knew he's going to feel humiliated, not because Rich Dad was trying to humiliate him, but he realized how much he didn't know yet. But two things happened. Number one, a very gracious leader in Rich Dad, and an open mind, which is the other key important part as a student in Robert Kiyosaki at that time. So that was another thing that I thought was really cool and admirable in that situation. And also probably one of the reasons why Rich Dad, or I should say Robert Kiyosaki kept coming back to Rich Dad, because he was a very kind leader, a very generous and thoughtful leader. So I see stuff like that and I go like, am I that way? Can I be a little bit better tomorrow because of what I just read? So let's get back into this. As we looked, this is going to be a long chapter. We'll go until we can go, and then we'll try to leave it at one of the sections, because chapter 6, right, is you don't see money, is is a very, very important chapter. So the average person is 95% yes and only 5% mind that when they invest. Let me read that again. The average person is 90% eyes and only 5% mind when they invest. That's a terrible relationship, said Rich Dad. If you want to become a professional in the B and I quadrants, you need to train your eyes to be only 5% and train your mind to see the other 95%. Rich Dad went on to explain that people who train their minds to see money have tremendous power over people who don't. Elon Musk comes to mind when I read that. 95% in your mind, 5% what you see. He was adamant about whom I took financial advice from. The reason most people struggle financially is because they take advice from people who are also mentally blind to money. It's the classic tale of the blind leading the blind. If you want money to come to you, you must know how to take care of it. If money isn't first in your head, it won't stick to your hands. If it doesn't stick to your hands, then money and people with money will stay away from you. Train your brain to see money. So what's the first step in training your brain to see money? The answer is easy. It's financial literacy. It begins with the ability to understand the words and the number systems of capitalism. If you don't understand the words or the numbers, you might as well be speaking a foreign language. And in many cases, each quadrant represents a foreign language, a unique language, if you think about it. If you look at the cash flow quadrants, each quadrant is like a different country. They don't all use the same words. And if you don't understand the words, you won't understand the numbers. For example, if a medical doctor says your systolic is 120 and your diastolic is 80, is that good or bad? Is that all you need to know for your health? The answer is obviously no, but it's a start. It's like asking, my stock's PE ratio is 12 and my apartment's cap rate is 12. Is that all I need to know for my wealth? Again, the answer is no, but it's a start. At least we're beginning to speak the same words and use the same numbers. And that is the beginning of financial literacy, which is the basis of financial intelligence. It starts with knowing the words and numbers. The doctor is speaking from the S quadrant, and the investor is speaking with words and numbers of the I quadrant. They might as well be speaking different languages. I disagree when someone says to me, it takes money to make money. In my opinion, the ability to make money with money begins with understanding the words and the numbers. As my rich dad always said, if money is not first in your head, it won't stick to your hands. Know what real risk is. The second step in training your brain is to see money is to learn to recognize what real risk is. When people say to me that investing is risky, I simply say investing is not risky. Being uneducated is risky. Investing is much like flying. If you've been to flight school and spent a number of years gaining experience, then flying is fun and exciting. But if you've never been to flight school, I'd leave the flying to someone else. Bad advice is risky. Rich Dad firmly believed that any financial advice was better than no financial advice. He was a man with an open mind. He was courteous and listened to many people, but he relied ultimately on his own financial intelligence to make the decisions. If you don't know anything, then any advice is better than no advice. But if you can't tell the difference between bad advice and good advice, then that is risky. Rich Dad firmly believed that most people struggle financially because they operate on financial information handed down from parent to child. Boom. And most people don't come from financially sound families. He often said, bad financial advice is risky, and most of the bad advice is handed out at home, not from what is said, but from what is done. Children learn by example more than words. Boom. Hey, by the way, every time you hear something that you think is a knowledge bomb, drop a boom or fire emoji in the text. Let's have some fun with this because this is a huge chapter. In case you haven't realized it, I'm actually very excited to be reading this chapter. Your advisors are only as smart as you. Rich Dad, your advisors can only be as smart as you are. If you're not smart, they can't tell you that much. If you're financially well educated, competent advisors can give you more sophisticated financial advice. Boom. If you are financially naive, they must by law offer you only safe and secure financial strategies. Boom. If you are an unsophisticated investor, they can only offer low risk, low yield investments. Boom. They often recommend diversification for unsophisticated investors. Few advisors chose to take the time to teach you because their time is money, A, and they don't want you as a liability, B. So if you will take it upon yourself to become financially educated and manage your money well, then a competent advisor can inform you about investments and strategies that few will ever see. But first, you must do your part to get educated. Always remember, your advisor can only be as smart as you. Boom. Is your banker lying to you? Rich Dad had several bankers he dealt with. They were an important part of his financial team. While he was close friends with and respected his bankers, he always felt he had to watch out for his own best interest. Just as he expected, the bankers do look out for their own best interest. After my 1974 investment experience, by the way, think about that, that was 50 years ago. He asked me this: when a banker says that your house is an asset, is he telling you the truth? Since most people are not financially literate and know how and don't know the game of money, they often must take the opinion and advice of people they tend to trust. If you're not financially literate, then you need to trust someone you hope is. Many people invest or manage their money based on someone else's recommendations more than their own, and that is risky. They're not lying. They're just not telling you the whole truth. The fact is that when a banker says your house is an asset, they're not really lying to you. They're just not telling you the whole truth. While your house is an asset, they simply don't say whose asset it is. If you read financial statements, it's easy to see that your house is not your asset. It's the bank's asset. Remember my rich dad's definition of an asset and a liability from Rich Dad Poor Dad? An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. Boom. Wow, I'm not seeing any of the booms in the comments, but I'm getting them. People on the left side don't really need to know the difference. Most of them are happy to feel secure in their jobs, have a nice house they think they own, are proud of, and think they're in control of. Nobody will take it away from them as long as they make those payments. But people on the right side need to know the difference. Being financially literate and financially intelligent means being able to understand the big picture of money. Financially astute people know that a mortgage doesn't show up as an asset, but as a liability on your balance sheet. Your mortgage actually shows up as an asset on the balance sheet across town. It shows up as an asset on the bank's balance sheet. And then you see the diagram, of course, of your house in the liability column. Anyone who has taken accounting knows that a balance sheet must balance, therefore the name. But where does it balance? It doesn't really balance on your balance sheet, okay? If you look at the bank's balance sheet, now it balances. Now it makes sense. That is B&I accounting. But this is not the way it's taught in basic accounting. In accounting, you'd show the value of your home as an asset and the mortgage as a liability. Also, an important point to note is that the value of your home is an opinion that fluctuates with the market, while your mortgage is a definite liability not affected by the market. For a B&I, the value of your home is not considered an asset. For B&I, the value of your home is not considered an asset because it does not generate cash flow. What happens if you pay off your mortgage? Many people ask me, what happens if I pay off my mortgage? Is my house an asset then? And my reply is, in most cases, the answer is still no. It's still a liability. There are several reasons why this is true. One is maintenance and general upkeep. Property is like a car. Even if you own it free and clear, it still costs money to operate. And once things start to break, everything begins to break. In most cases, people pay for repairs on their house, their car, with after-tax dollars. A person in the B and I quadrants only includes property as an asset if it generates income through positive cash flow. But the main reason a house, even without a mortgage, is still a liability is because you still don't own it. The government still taxes you, even if you own it. Just stop paying your property taxes and you'll find out who really owns your property. That is where tax lien certificates come from, which I wrote about in Rich Dad Poor Dad. Tax lien certificates are an excellent way to receive up to 16% interest on your money. If homeowners don't pay their property taxes, the government charges them interest on taxes owed at rates from 10 to 50%. Talk about being taken to the cleaners. If you don't pay the property taxes and someone like me pays them for you, then in many states, you owe me the taxes plus the interest. If you don't pay me within a certain amount of time, I get to take your house just for the money I put up. In most cases, in most states, property taxes take priority in repayment, even before the bank's mortgage. I've had the opportunity to buy houses I paid the taxes on for just a few $100s. The definition of real estate. Again, to be able to see money, you must see it with your mind, not your eyes. In order to train your mind, you must know the real definitions of words and systems of numbers. By now, you should know the difference between an asset and a liability, and you should know the definition of the word mortgage, which is an agreement until death, and the word finance, which means penalty. You will now learn the origin of the words real estate and a popular financial vehicle called derivatives. Many people think derivatives are new, but in reality, they're ages old. A simple definition of derivative is something that comes from something else. An example of a derivative is orange juice. Orange juice is a derivative of an orange. I used to think that the real estate meant real or something that was tangible, but my rich dad explained to me that it really comes from the Spanish word real, which means royal. El Camino Real means the royal road. Real estate means the royal estate. Once again, the agrarian age came to the end and the industrial age began around 1500. Power was no longer based on the land and agriculture. The monarchs realized that they had to change in response to the Land Reform Act that allowed peasants to own land. So royalty created derivatives such as taxes on land ownership and mortgages as a way of allowing commoners to finance their land. Taxes and mortgages are derivatives because they are derived from the land. Your banker could not call the mortgage a derivative, or would not call the mortgage a derivative. They would say it is secured by the land. Different words, similar meanings. So once royalty realized that money was no longer in the land, but in the derivatives that came from the land, the monarchs set up banks to handle the increased business. Boom again. Today, land is still called real estate because no matter how much you pay for it, it never really belongs to you. It still belongs to the royals. What is your interest rate? Really? Rich Dad fought and negotiated tough for every single point of interest he paid. He asked me this question: when a banker tells you your interest rate is 8% per annum, is it really? I found out that it's not if you learn to read numbers. Let's say you buy a $100,000 home and make a down payment of $20,000 and borrow the remaining $80,000 at 8% interest with a 30-year term from your bank. In 5 years, you will pay a total of $35,220 to the bank, $31,276 for interest, and only $3,944 for debt reduction. Think about that. You made $35,000 in payments, 31 went to interest. If you take the loan to term or 30 years, you will have paid $211,323 total principal and interest. Less what you originally borrowed, $80,000. The total interest you paid, $131,323. By the way, that $211,000 doesn't include property taxes or the insurance on the loan. Funny, 131,323 seems like a little bit more than 8% of $80,000. It's more like 160% interest in 30 years. As I said, they're not lying. They're just not telling you the whole truth. And if you can't read numbers, you'd really never know. And if you're happy with your house, you'll never really care. But of course, the industry knows that in a few years, you're going to want a new house, a bigger house, a smaller house, a vacation house, or a refinance on your mortgage. They know it. And in fact, they count on it. And I can tell you from being inside that business, that is absolutely true. Industry average. In the banking industry, a 7-year average is used as the life expectancy for a mortgage. That means banks expect the average person to buy a new house or refinance every 7 years. And that means in this example that they expect to get their original $80,000 back every 7 years, plus $42,291 in interest. And that's why it's called a mortgage, which comes from the French word mortier, or agreement till death. The reality is that most people will continue to work hard, get pay raises, and buy new houses with new mortgages. On top of that, the government gives us a tax break to encourage taxpayers to buy more expensive houses, which means higher property taxes for the government. Every time I watch television, I see commercials where handsome athletes smile and tell you to take all your credit card debt and roll it into a bill consolidation loan. That way you can pay off those credit cards and carry a new loan at a lower interest rate. They tell you why it's financially intelligent to do this. A bill consolidation loan is a smart move on your part because the government gives you a tax deduction for the interest payments you make on your mortgage, end quote. Viewers, thinking they see the light, run down to their finance company, refinance their home, pay off their credit cards, and feel intelligent. A few weeks later, they're shopping and see a new dress, a new lawnmower, or realize their kid needs a new bicycle, or they need to take a vacation because they're exhausted. They have excellent credit. They pay their bills. Their little heart goes pitter patter, and they say to themselves, "Oh, go on. You deserve it. You can pay it off a little every month." Once again, emotions overpower logic, and the credit card comes out of hiding. As I said, when bankers say your house is an asset, they're not lying. When the government gives you a tax break for being in debt, it is not because they're concerned about your financial future. The government is concerned about its financial future. So when your banker, your accountant, your attorney, and your teachers tell you that your house is an asset, they just fail to say whose asset it is. Now, what about savings? Are they assets? Now, your savings really are assets. That's the good news. But again, if you read financial statements, you'll understand the total picture. While it's true that your savings are assets, when you look across town at the banker's balance sheet, your savings show up as a liability. That is what your savings and checkbook balance look like in the asset column. And there you see the graph. And this is how your savings and your checkbook balance are carried on the bank's balance, right? They show it as a liability. Your savings, they owe you the money. Your checkbook balance, they owe you the money. Why are your savings and checkbook balances a liability to the banks? Because they have to pay you interest for the money, and it costs them money to safeguard it. If you can grasp the significance of these few drawings and words, you might begin to better understand what the eyes cannot see about the game of money. And by the way, if you think about this, it's a very simple concept, what he's talking about assets, what pay you money, liabilities is what you pay money on. When you don't get a tax break for saving money, why you don't get a tax break for saving money? If you notice, you get a tax break for buying a house and going into debt, but you don't get a tax break for saving money. Have you ever wondered why? I'm not sure either, but I imagine that one big reason is because your savings are a liability to banks. Why would they ask the government to pass a law that would encourage you to put even more money in their bank? Money that is a liability to them. Boom. They don't need, by the way, the boom question was, why would they, the bank, ask the government to pass a law that would encourage you to put even more money into their bank that is a liability for them? Interesting, right? That the banks and the government are making the decision on what's a tax write-off or not, or an incentive or not. They don't need your savings. Besides, the banks don't really need your savings. They don't need much in deposits because you can magnify money at least 10 times. If you put $1 in the bank, by law, the bank can lend out $10. And depending upon the reserve limits imposed by the central bank, possibly much more. We talk about that on Wednesday nights when we talk about the diversified cash flow account and how, again, you can set up an investment that allows you to use your money more than once. Banks have mastered this. That means that your single $1 suddenly becomes $10 or more. It's magic, or it's like magic. When my rich dad showed me that, I fell in love with the idea. At that point, I knew I wanted to own a bank and go to school to become a bank and not go to school to become a banker. Boom. I knew that I wanted to own a bank and not go to school to become a banker. On top of that, the bank may pay less than 1% interest on that $1. Ouch. In better economic times, it could be 5%. And you, as a consumer, would feel secure because the bank is paying you something on your money. Banks see this as good customer relationships because you have savings with them. You may come in and borrow money too. They want you to do this because they can charge 9% or more on what you borrow. While you make less than 1% on your $1, the bank can make 9% or more on the $10 of debt that your single dollar has generated. Recently, I received a new credit card offer that advertised 8.9% interest. But since I understood the legal jargon in the fine print, I saw it was really 23%. Needless to say, I took a pass. So at this point, I'm going to do a pause. We got 3 minutes left before the bottom of the hour. This is a great opportunity. I was dropping some bombs in there. I was hoping that more people would be, um, yeah, Ron said the boom seemed to be coming after every period, right? And the and I hope for your personal sake that you're getting these things because they're either insights or lessons about the money. And hopefully, after you spend an hour with us on the Saturday morning, that you'll stop and spend some time thinking about money and going back to the end of the chapter. So for the next reader, just remember we're leaving off at page 134. Okay. 134 is where we'll pick up at the bottom of the page. I want to go back to the very beginning of the chapter, right? Just to emphasize, this is the thought that you should take with you. You cannot see money with your eyes. And remember, 5% eyes, 95% mind to see the numbers. Write that down for myself. It's going to be the thought that I'm going to carry with me for the next few hours. I hope everybody enjoyed today's reading. If we don't have any more comments, I'm going to pass the baton back to you, Fernando. Thank you very much.
I will say this
Eric,
was monumental for my awareness on being aware of it while I read it, and then read it and become aware. It was just incredible. So thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, and I don't remember the saying exactly. It says something like, "If I hear it, I soon forget it. If I read it, I remember it a little bit longer. If I do it, I remember it for life."
Yeah.
And so see, how can you take something from this chapter and put it into real action to make it real? Make money real for you, make wealth real. And on that, back to you, Fernando.
amazing read. Wow. Again, I took a lot of notes. Boom, right? I love that, Eric. I just want to quickly, wrap up with some ideas that I wrote here. And this made me realize how important it is for us to understand real estate, precious metals, investments that create and that become an asset, and people. So, and I go back to the bigger your network, the bigger your net worth. Because if you're able to find other like-minded people that you can actually associate with that are not emotionally attached to decisions, they're more logical. I think we start to see money in a way where the chapter talks about you cannot see money with your eyes. You obviously need to see the logistics of what money can do for you. And most of us make decisions when we see a beautiful car, an expensive purse, wallet, right, shoes. So we make the wrong decisions because we get so caught up with brand. It's not really, we're not buying the shoe literally or the purse or the wallet. We're buying more the brand because it's an emotional attachment. You could probably have a nice Louis Vuitton purse or wallet and have no money in it, but a bunch of debt. So we got to detach from that, trying to impress others, just to look good and having an account that it's broken, right? So thank you so much. I love this chapter. You cannot see money with your eyes. And then you also talked about emotional. People buy an emotion, exactly. And if they do buy an emotion and they really don't see the logistics of it, they're going to regret what they bought because it'll depreciate in value as quick as you put it in your wallet. If it your new wallet, try to put money there, and that wallet is Louis Vuitton, and it depreciates in value. Brand, it's only as good as it gets out of the store. Right after that, it goes under. I hope I made sense with what I just said, Eric.
No, those are great things. And maybe one exercise, and I'm going to give you two. Maybe one exercise is look at everything and say asset or liability, asset or liability, purse, liability, right? Rental property, asset, your personal home. And I'll debate that one all day long, being that I believe that a home is your asset. But here's one that a lot of people don't think about, only in the last year did I think I really, really appreciated this one. But Fernando, you're 100% right. Your net worth is an asset. Your network is an asset. People who have the powerful people on speed dial, that's an asset. That's where they get
Yeah,
leverage. That's where they get other people's money, other people's brains, and so forth. That's a huge boom right there that
yeah.
Fernando shared. But you know what's another one that is probably a stealth boom is your credit score. Your credit score, most people avoid their credit report like the dentist, but your credit score is the key to unlock great investments and great opportunities, 0% interest. You want to use other people's money and not pay interest. That's called an asset, my friends. And so
Yep.
the two exercise number one is identify what you have that is an asset and what you have that is a liability. And as you go through the day, look at other things, cars and everything else. What is an asset? What is a liability? And ask yourself the question, what am I doing to acquire assets? Because that's the secret to financial future. And the second thing is, do you know exactly what your credit score is? If you don't know, go back and find it. You can get it for free on Credit Karma. A lot of your
Mhm.
credit cards are giving, and Credit Karma is a simulation. It's the Vantage score, which isn't quite official yet. And then there is the ones that your credit cards are publishing that usually it's free. You get to see what your FICO score is and understand what your FICO score is. I'm going to tell you, and we'll talk more about it, in future weeks, that when you have, and here in my house, it's black and white in my face. I have worked hard after a divorce to bring my credit score back into the 700s. I saw the difference between what happens when you have the nuclear bomb hit your credit and then how to fix it with the right experts on your side. Number
Yep.
one. I get certain credit offers with the 700 credit score. Erica here in my house, who has an 800 and has had an 850 score, she gets mad when it goes down to 830. She gets different mail. She gets mail,
Wow.
cash offers. You just use our credit card and we'll give you $2,000, 0% interest for 24 months.
Mm.
It's real. It's real. I know, and not everybody gets to see that, but understand that your credit score is an asset. Protect it, guard it, and build it. Back to you, Fernando.
Right.
Great stuff.
I love that. Thank you so much, Eric. And the problem is that most people don't see their credit score as an asset when it goes up. They see it as a liability and get into debt. So that's why education is so important. And we gotta educate, our eyes and our mind. Because if we get fooled by things that we're tempted to buy because we have a good credit score number, it's a sad situation to use it as a liability instead of something that you can leverage from. So thanks again, Eric. This was awesome. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we got about 24 minutes. We're gonna have the basic click and play, amazing conversation that we can all have, that we all have access to, and then right after that, we're gonna get into it in how is it that you can leverage on that uh, powerful conversation and share it with everybody. So we're going to show you how to share it, how to put it in people's hands, how to present it yourself, and I'll show you some strategies that I've used when I started with MWR that exploded our business from day one just by using the click and play conversation video. You're going to love that. So we're going to play some music, Eric. Thank you so much once again. Phenomenal job as always. I'm taking a lot with me. I learned so much from you. That's why your network is your net worth, and you are definitely a tremendous leader in our network. So you are an asset to all of us. Appreciate you. All right.
Thank you,
So,
Fernando.
ladies and thanks so much, buddy. All right, so we're gonna play some music, and maybe if you Eric can allow us the screen here, stop the screen share, please, and we'll because I want to start to see people come in as we send out the invitations. Remember, the next person that you invite to our event can be that person that you have been looking for to add into your network and have a visionary objective of seeing the tremendous opportunity that we have. Yesterday, as a matter of fact, we one of our team partners, Mr. Gilbert, sponsored a humongous networker, and Anthony is here with us, and I'm hoping that he comes in a little bit later now with a few guests. But this gentleman brings a lot to the table, so we have added, someone in our group that is definitely seeing this with big eyes. And I'm not talking about the eyes of your eyes, that you see with, it's the internal eyes, okay, that he's got about the vision of our company. So I'm gonna play some music, and we are going to be back shortly. So why am I seeing me and I'm not seeing everybody? It's like I'm sharing. Are you guys seeing everybody, or are you seeing my big face in the screen?
I see everybody. It's probably the view. Go up top right hand corner and slide down to view and go to
Okay. Thank you, Ron.
gallery, and you'll
Appreciate it.
see everybody.
Okay, let me see here. All right, let me just I'll work on it behind the scenes, and I'll play some music. Ron, if you can let me know once I play the music, if you can hear it. Thank you
Okay,
so much, Ron.
sure.
And we'll do the invites.
Just let me know when you start.
It's playing now.
Yes, it is.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.